I'm Laura Deehan, the State Director for Environment California, and I'm next going to hand it over to Ben Soniga with Energy Sage, who are partners of Environment America, to talk about how you can go solar and also save some of that solar for later with battery storage. Over to you, Ben.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laura. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. Again, I'm Ben Soniga with Energy Sage. We're the country's leading online marketplace where folks can learn more about their solar storage and other clean energy options, as well as sign up to receive quotes and get the process started through our network of vetted installers. We're partners with Environment America. And should we do other intros for speakers, or should we save that for later?
We'll do that right at the next section, so you can go on.
I can't hear you. I think we'll save it for later. I'll crack on with the overview. Try to keep this quick and save time for questions. So for an overview, I'll spend just 1 minute on why solar and storage. I think this group knows why, but I'll dwell on that for one moment. What the incentives are, a little bit about the partnership with Environment America and Energy Sage, and then we'll run on to questions and answers. So, of course, we heard a lot about how much of a massive investment this is in climate and clean energy, most notably the aggressive goal of getting to 40% emissions reductions by 2030, and that a lot of the agency is placed in the hands of us, the consumer, regular folks. And so top of mind when it comes to adding solar and storage at home is, of course, the environmental benefit. The average rooftop solar, the sort of one that we all sort of know and love, is often about the equivalent of planting, or the carbon emissions equivalent of planting 100 or more trees per year. So one really good way to help be a part of that goal of reducing emissions before 2030. Second, and a few more benefits, of course, you can drastically reduce or even cover your electricity cost entirely by putting solar on your roof. The odds of that get better when you add storage. So, piecing storage into the picture helps capture additional clean energy, provide reliable and consistent backup power, and can also build resilience to climate-related outages, as well as variable and sometimes now rising energy costs. And also can help support local clean energy jobs. Mostly here, I'll be talking about credits for what's called residential solar. This doesn't have to be rooftop, can also be ground mounted, but is usually best for homeowners. I also wanted to touch very briefly on community solar during this presentation, so I wanted to note the difference here. Community solar is a great option for renters, people who don't own their roof, people who have too many trees in their yard or too much shading on their roof to go solar. This is an option where you can subscribe to a community solar garden to receive credits on your utility bill, save money and support clean energy. It's not available in all states, but the number of states where there is community solar is growing. Super quick pitch for the partnership with Environment America. I'll drop a link in the chat for this, but there are some excellent resources on Environment America's website on how to go solar. If you just search Environment America, how to go solar, you will find all of these great resources and a link to the partnership with Energy Sage, where you can go and actually sign up to get your journey started. A couple of tools that I think are very useful on the Energy Sage side of things are Solar Calculator. Just putting in your address and an estimate of your usage, you can get a quick picture of your solar suitability on your roof, what the economics might look like, and if you are not a suitable candidate for solar, if there are community solar options, we can help you get connected with that as well. We also have a team of energy advisors who can help you navigate the ins and outs of the individual quotes that you get at Energy Sage. So be sure to tag them if you do decide to pop over to that partnership and start your journey with solar. That's all. I hope I kept that under 10 minutes. And that's my email if you'd like to reach out directly, phone, and you can find me on the internet at Ben Soniga.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ben. That was under 10 minutes, 8 minutes. So well done.
Perfect.
And then thank you for sharing your contact info and for being willing to take people's questions if we don't get through them all today.
Yeah.
So I'm already seeing some questions in the chat, but before we get to the Q&A, I wanted to also introduce a couple of other experts who have joined us here to help field questions. So we also have from Solar United Neighbors, Hannah Mitchell, and from the Texas Solar Energy Society, Pete Parsons. Can you guys take a minute and just introduce yourself, like where you're based and what your organization does and how you might be able to help address questions as well?
Yeah, so I'm Hannah Mitchell. I'm the Texas Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. We're a national nonprofit organization. We help people join together, go solar, and fight for their energy rights. And so we do a fair amount of, I guess, I would classify it as customer support for folks who are looking to go solar either on their own or through, we convene group buy programs to help drive down the cost and hassle of going solar. So those are some of the ways that we help people go solar. And then we also work on policy and advocacy issues. And we have staff on the ground in about a dozen states and then fully national, but more remote offerings in other states. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'm just going to drop a link to our page on how the IRA can help you and your community go solar.
Thank you, Hannah. And over to you, Pete. Oh, and I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I do that all the time. I'm Pete Parsons, and I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Solar Energy Society. We are a statewide organization that's focused on distributed resources, and we've been around since 1976. We're a member-based organization. Our primary purpose is to educate, including workforce training, as well as just general information for individuals who are interested in going solar or current solar homeowners. We also are involved in tracking policy and providing information to folks that might want to reach out or get talking points, things like that. So thank you for having me.
Great, thank you all for being here. So now we're going to get into the Q&A section. I wanted to, because this is kind of a meeting format rather than a webinar, I wanted to encourage folks to, if you're willing, turn your camera on so we can see you while we're having this discussion, because that's just a little bit more fun. And we've got quite a big group, so we might not get to everyone's questions, but we're hoping to get to as many as we can. And so let's see, I see a bunch of questions in here. One was about California and how, as many folks might have heard, California recently adopted a new policy, the Net Energy Metering Updated 3.0 policy, which unfortunately cut some of the solar incentives. And I wanted to, first of all, see if Ben wanted to just tackle that question of like, what are the implications of that and how can consumers make sure to take as much advantage of existing incentives before it's too late?
Sure, happy to. So yeah, there's upcoming change to the value of an export credit under net energy metering in California that will lower the credit pretty drastically. We at Energy Sage have estimated that the economics of going solar, so this is solar only, not including storage, would be impacted and drop by about 60%. So that's not great news, but the good news is that you can still lock in the current more favorable rates for solar economics by submitting an interconnection application for a solar system before April 15. So and then that rate structure is locked in for 20 years. So if you are in California and serviced by one of the investor-owned utilities, then you should consider, and you are considering solar, you should likely do so as soon as possible. And Energy Sage is a great place to start if you want to get some quotes from some really high quality, reputable installers. And have our team help you make the right decision and make sure that you get all the paperwork in on time to capture the 20 years of the better rate structure.
Great.
I
Thank
think
you
that
so much,
covers it.
Ben.
Does
That's pretty
that
good.
sound right?
And then I also wanted to share, I just dropped into the chat the link to the Solar Rights Alliance FAQ, which has got really terrific info and questions that I hadn't even considered. And so check that out if you're based in California and are trying to figure out how to navigate in this new world where there's a new, unfortunately worse incentive getting put into place starting in April. And actually also I just talked to Dave today and he said they're doing a webinar this evening from 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific time. And so there'll be a lot more California specific info there. All right, so I'm seeing a lot more questions in the chat and some folks have their hands raised. So let's do that first. Let's see, Gilmore's, do you want to go first with your question?
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, great. Sorry, my cat was rattling the screen. So I think my question is echoed by a bunch of people. So there's a bunch of us wondering about coordinating going solar with assessing the condition of our house's roofs. So that it all lines up, and how, especially if we know it's not a new roof. I had a side question about, way back before all of these credits and everything, I remember people saying, oh, solar's really expensive. You need to, plan on being in the house at least X years for it to be worth your while. And I'm not sure how many more years I'm going to be in this house. So that's another question. But I see a lot of people asking about solar and roof stuff. So maybe that's the question to address.
I can start on that and then
Thanks, Hannah.
Pete or Ben can add anything. So generally speaking, we don't recommend that you put solar on a roof that's halfway or more through its lifespan. So your roof doesn't need to be brand new. But you don't want to put solar on a roof that you think you're going to have to replace in, say, the next 10 years or so. And so the reason for that is that if you need to do a roof replacement, you're going to have to pay for the removal and the reinstallation of the panels. So your roof doesn't have to be brand new, but you just thinking about the whole lifespan of your roof and trying to aim for that halfway or less through the lifespan.
If you don't know a darn thing about roofs, I'm hearing, or somewhere I heard or read that some solar companies will assess that for you. In other words, how do we know? How do we get somebody who can reliably? Does anyone who does solar do that as part of their service?
Yeah, so they'll usually have an initial conversation with you that's remote, and then they'll do a site survey and they can investigate your roof during the site survey. You could also, ask your neighbors for a good roofing contractor to check it out and give you give you their best assessment of the roof. And how long your roof lasts is really going to depend on where you are in the country and what the materials are. So I know in Texas a 30-year roof really usually only lasts 20 years just because of the exposure to extreme heat. So aiming for rule of thumb is just trying to aim for no more than halfway through the lifespan. And then sorry, what was the second part of your question?
It may be moot now, but years ago, I remember people saying,
moving out of your house, right?
Well, just like how many years you need to make it worth your, not from an environmental or ethical thing, but financially. And I have a really limited window between buying out my ex and refinancing and possibly retiring and leaving this house. So I've been waiting a long time, but I'm not sure how much longer I'll be here.
So it really depends. Again, it depends on what part of the country you're in, because that's going to depend on, do you have access to an SREC, so a solar renewable energy credit market, which can give you an extra value stream for the panels. What are the rates that you get for your excess generation? Do you live in a state that has a net metering law, or do you have different utility tariffs? But that being said, even if you're considering moving on from your home, Zillow did a study in 2019 that shows that homes with solar sell for 4% more on average. So, you know, even if you're thinking you might be moving on, as long as you can transfer that loan to a new owner, it could still be, you know, a really great investment. And so I'm going to see if Pete or Ben have anything to add to either of those points.
I'm muting myself because my cat's here meowing away. Sorry.
And then I think one of those questions that Gilmore's asked was kind of connected to the bigger question of like, how do you figure out the payback period? Like, how do you figure out how long it will take to pay off, you know, the upfront investment? I was wondering if Ben, if you have any resources for that.
Yeah. So the solar calculator that I mentioned does estimate the economics of your solar system, including the payback period and lifetime savings. And I'll drop that in the chat.
All right, great. All right, let's go to Lisa next.
Hi, long-time listener, first-time caller. Just a quick question, and this may be specific to people in California, but maybe it could help for others. And I know that you mentioned the like Energy Sage as a use. Last year, I looked into going solar, and living in Los Angeles County was overwhelmed by the sheer number of people in the business of putting on solar roofs. I had a really difficult time kind of sorting through, so I didn't. Happy because now I get a better tax credit. What are the things that we should look for in a company going solar? Are there any like benchmarks or best practices or things that we should use in order to choose someone? And is that totally answerable on Energy Sage?
Excellent question. Some and some. I can tell you some of the things that we look for when we vet companies. We're looking for at least 3 years experience installing solar PV systems. And so basically a little bit of, time under your belt is obviously the first thing. NABCEP certification is sort of the industry standard certifications. And then, beyond that, we sort of interview companies before onboarding them onto Energy Sage. Without spending too much time on this, I would encourage you to sign up and check out Energy Sage. There's also a place where you can look at the reviews for solar companies in your area without actually signing up for quotes. So if you'd like to start with just looking at the customer reviews, that is a great way to go about it before actually signing up to receive quotes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
I also would like to say that I always encourage people to get at least 3 bids. That way you have a way to determine, what's the best price. And they can also help you figure out, if it even makes sense for you to go solar based on, the way your roof is positioned and other information, basically also if your roof is in good enough shape. So, reaching out to 3 different installers in your area is always a really good idea. For those of you who live in Texas, we have a list of business members on our website that are broken out by county. And they're all installers that we have vetted, and they're required to, to a certain level of ethics and code of conduct. So I just put a bunch of links in the chat that could be helpful. And I'm also going to put my website in there.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete. And then I would just add in that I find in California, I often look at the California Solar and Storage Association member list, because then I know they've been vetted in order to be part of that association. And I think there's similar state associations in other states. So that would be another
Can you
tip.
repeat the name of that one more time?
Yeah, the California Solar and Storage Association. They have pretty high standards as well for who can be a member. So they also are vetted. Jacob, you have your hand raised.
Hi, thanks for being here. I guess it's kind of a 2-part question. I'm based in Chicago and I am opening a restaurant. And so the first part, which is really simple part, is we talked a lot about kind of residential and community. And I just want to make sure this is also covering commercial operations, or that those tax credits are different. And then the second question on the same thing is like, we're building a restaurant in an old building, but essentially from scratch. And I mean, I could put the solar panels up now and then do my whole build out, or I could do my build out and then put in the solar panels. Is there a recommended order of operations if you're doing major repairs on your space?
I'm not sure I can answer that question either in terms of timing. And I'm not a solar installer, but what I would recommend is that you reach out to some local installers and ask them just in terms of, you know, how it would best work. If it makes sense to do it first, or makes sense, to go ahead and do your build out. And then, because there might be some things that could change as you do your build out that could affect your final product. That would be my advice. But again, I'm not an installer. I think I would get with some installers first.
Hey, Matt, are you able to go off mute? Are you ready with your question? Good to see you.
Hi, Laura. I'm in the category of that first speaker who has a roof replacement issue. Because I have asbestos shingles on my roof, the cost of my roof work is going to exceed the cost of the solar. As a result of that, I've been looking carefully at solar roof shingles. But if that's a newer product, and I've been waiting for that to be out there more on the market. And then I looked at the Energy Sage site, and there's not a lot of materials. There's a lot that you have some description of the Tesla product, which is, I have a problem with that for other political reasons. Probably a lot of the people watching this call do too as well. But it's very attractive. And now there's this new GAF product out there. And this is a question to anybody who's on the panel. If anybody else is looking at that, I'd love to know if that's a viable option, what you think of that, and encourage you, Energy Sage, to put up some materials about this, because that would qualify. I don't know how they could, if that's your solar engine in your roofing shingle, the new GAF product, that would make it much more economically viable for all of us who have roofing costs coming up. I don't know if anybody has any feedback on that. I'd love to hear it.
Not feedback necessarily, more just appreciate the sentiment, and point well taken to put more resources out as a consumer education institution at Energy Sage. My understanding is that, we're not quite there yet with the technology is in terms of a sort of cost-effective marketplace, but extremely great point.